Welcome back to another episode of Some Old AV Guy. My name's Eric. Today's guest is Chris Shulo. He is a V1 video op. He's also a E2 op. Welcome to the show, Chris.
It's very nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You got it. You got it. So, Chris, why don't you tell our viewers um, pretty much what it is that you do, how long you've been in the industry, and what got you into the industry itself?
Well, let's start with what got me into the industry. I started basically in high school when I was working in music. Music has always been a big part of my life. When I wasn't on stage, I was working backstage. Um, my degree is in music. I have a master's in music from Duquesne University in vocal performance. And I did have a small career singing Pittsburgh Opera, some of the other uh, light opera areas and musical theater and things like that. But I found that I really needed to have money.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was, it's like, anybody and his brother would, kill to be on stage, but they got to pay the technicians to get the work done. And I had a background in tech. And in college, I did that. And whenever a show would come to town, I'd work as a stagehand, and we loaded in. Oh God, what do we? Psychedelic Furs and Ray Charles, and uh, I got to run Spotlight for Ray Charles. Um, oh God, all kinds of old. I don't know if anybody remembers these some of these the people that we worked with, but that was back in the '80s, early '80s.
Sure.
And like I said, when I wasn't on stage, I was working as a technical director in some theaters. I had a little bit of everything. I had more lighting than anything else, but I was also a stage carpenter. I built a lot of sets growing up in high school and then in college. I helped my family build two homes, so I was a carpenter as well. I
Okay.
was good with tools. And these are little skill sets that transfer, so easily from one place to another.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people don't realize that having that skill set allows you to also to talk to people who have that skill set. So, understanding lighting, I can tell a lighting guy that, that's not really going to do. And that's especially when in the video world, when lighting is key for everything, pardon the pun.
Yeah, yeah.
But so how did I get into the business? I came in through the stage door. That's how I came in. And I've loved every part of it. I miss singing, to be honest with you. I sing in the church and still do weddings and funerals and whatever, what have you. But I'm starting to cantor again in my church. Uh, but there's more to your question. What do I do now? Okay, well, I'm a video engineer, is how I put it.
Hmm.
Uh, when everybody asks me what do I do, well, you go to that big conference and you see all the screens and and cameras and things like that. Well, I organize that and I run that. And that's basically how I tell people what my job is. And in truth, I have a hand in just about anything video. I run cameras. I can be a cameraman because you came up in stages. When I first started out, I came to Baltimore and I was working through a little crewing company. They knew me as a lighting guy and as a stage carpenter. Uh, but a very dear friend who I lost about 10 years ago said, the lighting guy here is here on the in and the out, because most of the time in corporate work, it's just lights up, lights down. They don't do a lot of flashy, trashy, and things like that. Not a
Yeah,
lot of
unless it's like a big conference with, thousands.
right, right. So, and that's what we were doing. We were doing small stuff at the time, and but the AV guy stays all week, and when you're a day rate player, you want those days.
Yeah.
You want those days, and you say, okay, well, what does it mean to be an AV guy? And they put me on breakouts, and I started learning how to run cable and what VGA was, and then later on SDI and HDMI and all of those things. They came into Flute. I liked it. Working breakouts was fun. You know, you had a lot of good people that you trusted and you worked hard together with. You had a lot of fun with. And one day they needed somebody to run tape up in the main tent, up in the GS, as we call it, the general session. Hey, Shula, why don't you go up? Oh, yeah, sure. Okay. I have no idea what I'm doing. I've run a VHS before, but this is a beta tape. Okay. Now this is in the
Still back
90s.
on the beta, yeah.
It's in the late 90s. And he said, okay, so I figured out, I said, well, how do you do this? And I asked questions.
Sure.
Very important. The idea of fake it till you make it, uh, it's so wrong.
Yeah.
And never try to, you know, put yourself off as something that you are not, because it'll only come back to bite you.
Hmm.
The truth is that being honest is the best policy. And when somebody comes to me now, a young kid or somebody who's never done this before, said, I ain't never done this before. The first thing I say is, that's great. That's fine. Let me show you a few things that I'm going to need you to do. And I can give you a tutorial in 5 minutes that'll get you up and running on this machine. And
Yeah.
if you have any problems, you'll know you can ask me a problem. You have a problem, and we'll work it out together. If he doesn't feel comfortable with it, and please tell somebody you don't feel comfortable with this.
Absolutely.
Please, it's no skin off your nose. It's no skin. Listen, I'll find another job for you. You're still working. This doesn't mean your day's gone. It just means that you're honorable enough to step up and say, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
And believe me, that means more to me than anything.
exactly.
Uh,
Myself included.
yeah.
I
So,
think I think in our industry there are quite a few different mistakes that guys make, and
mhm,
you have to make mistakes to learn.
absolutely.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there as far as if you don't know how to do something, ask, or if you're not comfortable working on something, say something.
Hmm.
um, because more often than not, and I've noticed that moving here from the New York market, especially for young guys getting into the industry, there's more of a mindset of fake it till you make it, and that used to work back in the day when
Yeah.
you had a room with a 4-channel mixer and yet had a VHS camcorder, and you could fumble your way through things and figure them out.
Well,
But
a lot of the gear was prosumer. It was consumer
exactly,
gear that was, just a little better than consumer gear. It was so yeah. If they had a VHS tape player at home, they knew how to run it.
yeah, the
So
difference being now is technology has evolved so quickly and so far,
absolutely.
you just can't do that anymore. You can't get somebody who has never done video switching and ask them to set up an ATEM switcher, even if it's the mini. And
Well, it's so much more than just setting it up.
yeah,
I mean, there's timing,
mhm,
knowing when to make a change. If you're cutting cameras is an art. There's just no two ways about it. And the best thing you can do if you're cutting cameras, the best thing that you can have in helping you is a good cameraman,
yeah,
because a good cameraman or woman, camera person, will make or break the whole show. And a lot of times we have just one camera, and it's their show. Really, all I can do is decide when you're going to come in and go out.
yeah,
But I mean, I give a little bit of ideas. Hey, listen, why don't you open up to a two shot here? I kind of give them some ideas to make it look a little more professional,
mhm,
to include others. Just some people just don't get it. They
yeah,
don't understand that there's more than just shooting the camera and being there. I mean, I'm trying very hard to look into the lens here, because I know that one of the things that bothers me the most is when people don't look into the lens and they're off to the side talking to their guy, and you're getting this great information, but it's not doesn't feel like it's going straight to you,
Yeah.
or you're just a fly on the wall. Yeah. But having those partnerships, that guy who told me be an AV, be, the AV guys here all week, he was a cameraman.
Yeah.
And he was my best friend in the world. And he and I worked together so often. I trusted him so much. And he taught me so much. And then when you start getting 2 and 3 cameras, what does that mean? And how you can set up a camera to, okay, I know that this guy is going to move across the stage. I know that he's going to, there's going to be a grip and grin over here, a handshake and a smile for the camera. But
Mhm.
let's follow him over to a shot that's already set. And then as we follow, when he gets there, we click and he's there and it looks perfect. It's professional, it's clean, it's neat. Um, but so many people don't put the thought into it,
Yeah.
and
Or they're
that's
just looking at the one shot that they've got, not realizing that, okay, we've got to go from this, tight headshot to a wider shot of someone else walking up behind them and,
hmm hmm
handing them something or giving them a handshake. And
my father used to say, and still does, go to step 3. You know what step 1 is. You're in it right now, okay? But do you know what's coming next? And having worked in the theater and understanding how the theater works on and off, and just the whole stylized portion of it helped me immensely when I got to video.
right.
And having knowing lighting also helped me when I got to video. So it's a combination of many things. Ask me to run an AV board. If it's just a little Sony or a Behringer or just, I'm starting to understand the new mixers,
Sure.
but they're just confusing to me.
I'm right there with you. I as well kind of grew up in the AV industry. I started in the late 90s, and most of everything was analog back then. You could still get digital mixers, but they were mainly for concerts and
Mhm.
really large events. So that's my comfortability when it comes to audio. Put me behind a digital board, and now I'm really nervous because
Well,
it's not as easy as, okay, I know this is plugged in. I've got a cable here, a physical cable, I can plug it in. Now you actually have to digitally patch things, and it gets confusing that way.
yeah, when it was analog, I mean, I knew how to do a mix minus
Hmm.
because I needed it so often, because you were sending video or audio somewhere else, and and you needed to only send portions of it. So I learned that early on. But other than that, and having even the fact that I had a music degree doesn't mean I knew sound. I have a great admiration for those who do it well,
Yeah.
and but a lot of people think that sound is easy, and it's not. Running a fader, it's not just running a fader; it's so much more. There's and they have to have the ear for it. I know I don't. So, but I have the eye for video,
There you go.
and you're constantly in the moment when you're running video. That's why a lot of guys call shows from video, and I call a lot of shows from video. There are times when I'm just calling a show,
Sure.
but I actually find it easier when I've got a console in front of me and I can, I know that I'm the one pushing the button. But that's just me being a control freak, I'm sure.
Yeah. So you kind of touched on it. I do want to hit up this topic because it's something that either people get embarrassed or afraid to talk about. But what are some mistakes that you see uh, operators or technicians do in the industry quite often, and what changes do you think that can be made to avoid those mistakes? And I know I'm being very general, but it could be anything from their attire to falling asleep to
Well,
not.
those, of course, are problems, and we've all had them. I've had issues with that in the past myself. You work many hours, and sometimes it's droning on, and you have a hard time with that.
Oh yeah.
You got to stand up and walk around, or ask to take a break. Somebody else sit in your chair.
Hmm.
There's no harm in that. As long because it's a long stretch. There's not much happening. You can set up. I had to actually leave a gig once because my son had appendicitis, and I got the phone call that he was going into surgery. And I turned to the person next to me and I said, "Do you know how to run this machine?" And she said, "No." I said, "Well, these are the three presets you're going to need, and that's all you're going to use. It's a preset, 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 and that's all you're going to use. And you can get through this." Like I said, I can talk somebody into a show, through a show pretty
Right.
quickly if it's set up properly.
Correct.
And that's the key. Running the show is easy. Setting it is the hard part. Understanding what problems may arise. And I set up shows with ideas that, you know, do you always run a cable to the lectern uh, on stage for a computer? Yeah, I do. Do you always use it? No, I rarely do, because someday somebody's going to walk in, and the one time I didn't do it, they're going to say, "Oh, he's going to want to present from the lectern on his laptop."
Yeah. And now at
Um,
the last minute, you're
at
sitting
the
there
last
running
minute,
cable, and people are watching you, and they're like, "What's going on? They didn't plan
it
for it."
wasn't in the paperwork.
Yep.
It's the little thing that you didn't know you needed to do, but you do need to do it. As a matter of fact, you talk about what are things that people shouldn't do. I think, and I've come to learn this over time, try not to do more than you have to, in the sense that, yes, you need to set that extra cable, but try not to make it too much in the way that you present it. If it hasn't been asked for, you can have it in reserve, but don't show it off.
Yeah.
A lot of times, PMs will come up to you and say, "I didn't sell that." Well, it's the box. The box does like a lower third
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or something like that. And the reason that they're saying that is because, and I know you wanted, a lot of people, and I myself have been guilty of this. I wanted to be a little flashy and show skill. Um, if it's not asked for, you can ask the PM, do they want this, and maybe even have it in reserve and say it's ready if you need it,
Hmm.
which is always good. But don't try and push it, because clients aren't ready, that might not be ready for it. And remember that when you're making a recording, especially, they may have an idea down the line of a clean video that they're going to then put lower thirds in
Right.
and do in post. So you may be screwing up their look. Uh, but I know a lot of guys want to make use the machine that goes ping and do all the bells and whistles, and it's fun, yeah, but it's not as professional. You got to be much more professional and hold back on what you're going to do.
Sometimes it just happens that the client you're working for has the gear and they would prefer to use that piece of equipment because of the fact that it's more reliable, it was cheaper when they bought it, but they don't necessarily want to sell all of the abilities of that piece of equipment because either the end client doesn't have the budget for it,
Mm-hmm.
or if they do it this time, then the end
So,
client's going to be asking for it every single time, and it opens
well,
big cans of worms.
different PMs have different ideas about
Right.
that. I had a PM one time that said, "Yeah, give it to them. Let's show them what it looks like. We'll give it to them for free this time. First taste is free."
Mhm.
It was sitting on the shelf and it wasn't being used, so let's use it. But understand, and have them understand that this is not a piece of gear that goes out every time.
Yeah.
You just happen to have it on this one. Now, if you like it, we can make sure that it comes. It is that kind of first taste is free.
Yeah.
You get them in, and that's how you get them acclimated to differences. I mean, changing over from SD to HD was very difficult at first. People didn't want to do it. They didn't want the extra expense until it got down in expense. But it wasn't going to go down in expense unless we did it.
Yeah.
We had to get it out there. We had to start pushing it. and so that more people saw it, more people bought the boxes, and the boxes came down in price. Um, the other thing is when people are doing things, I think especially the I don't know, from my point of view, there can be a lot of problems come from corporate, the AV company that will say, we don't want to do this, we don't want to do that. And then you have an a client who comes in and tells you what they really want. Now, whether it's a disconnect from sales to production or what, sometimes you're caught in the middle, and you just gotta hold your tongue and say, I'll have to check with my PM.
Yeah.
If the client is coming in and saying, well, I want a lower third, we did a lower third last time. I said, well, that could be possible. Could be possible.
Mhm.
Let me check with my. Don't never say no.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, I don't know
That's
is
a
an
big,
acceptable answer.
yeah,
There's three answers. There's yes, no, and I don't know, but I can find out.
exactly.
And just basic rule of thumb. Just try not to overstate it
Yeah.
and overdo it.
And there's always a hierarchy on these shows anyways.
Hmm.
Typically at least on a lot of the shows I've been doing lately, there's a full show PM, and then there's a section PM, and it might be a breakout PM,
Hmm.
or it might be exhibits PM, or GS PM, or whatever. And it's always a good idea to go back to whoever your main contact is. Hey, the client
Hmm.
asked me this. What can we do? These are our options.
Yeah, the shows that I get worried on are the ones that don't have any paperwork.
Yeah.
I come in and they have a basic napkin that says, "Oh, screen's here, screen's there, camera's going to be there, and you'll have a main and backup computer and maybe a playback." Okay, well, you've given me some idea of what a show is going to look like, but you haven't given me any kind of um, anticipation of what the client really wants.
Yeah.
And for that end, and I've had a lot of PMs that just say, "Well, talk to the client."
No, that's your job.
No, that's your job. Exactly. I'm like, well, you will get guys who will put you over, run the bus over you, and they will say, well, why did you do that? So, well, you told me to go talk to the client.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't promise him that. I said, okay, fine. Well, we won't do it then. But they're the client has expectations, and a lot of, and I think this is true with more big companies than small.
Mhm.
Uh, they don't really see what the client wants. There are when you get into larger companies that have just a sales department,
Correct.
who in many times, and I'm probably speaking out of turn here, but it's just a cut and paste with these guys. Sometimes you feel that way, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. The
That
GS is the thing that is main.
I had a show last year that had two beta decks come off the truck.
Oh my God.
Okay, why? They were on the list. Never looked
That
through it.
that's when a show is sold year after year, and the inventory list never gets checked.
Yeah,
It's just, hey, this is what we did last year.
that's
And that
just
that drives me nuts. Like the one thing that I wish we as an industry could get away from is, well, we did it this way last time.
yep.
And just because you did it this way last time doesn't mean that it's right, doesn't mean that that's really what the client wants.
I'm sure it was perfect. I'm sure it was great.
Yeah.
Is there any reason we can't raise the bar?
Hmm.
Is there any reason we can't say we'll do it just a little different to make this year seem special?
Yeah.
Because let's face it, people ask me, what'd you do last week? Same thing I did every week, but I like it. Obviously you like it when you have a little diversity in your life and you do things a little differently once in a while. Uh, there's something to be said also for being consistent. If this is the way that they've done it for 30 years and they don't expect it any different, and a lot of times I'll tell you one company that one client Every January they have their show at DC Convention Center, and they do not want a downstage monitor in the general session. Why? Because they don't want a downstage monitor in all of the other sessions, all the breakouts.
Gotcha. And
Because they don't want, and they've been told it would be free. They don't want it. Why? I don't know. They're set in their ways, and you have to respect that.
yeah,
It would make a lot of sense to have one there, because then you don't have somebody turning around and talking to the slide and not being on microphone.
oh yeah,
And so I mean, we learn little things. We try to give information to people. We try to educate them as best we can without being condescending.
exactly.
And sometimes people just have a nerve, and you hit them.
Yeah.
That's another thing. You can be thrown up against the bus for almost anything, and then all of a sudden you're. I know I'm sounding like a cynic, but you do this for 30 years, you get a little cynical. So
So, to help some of our viewers out who are looking into getting into the higher end switching field, guys who, see the big numbers that people are making on a day rate when they're an E2 op, if someone wanted to get into that, what would you recommend? This is the best way, or at least this way worked for me, and
well, I mean, I sent myself to Barco school. I had and I sent myself to Analog Way school. I paid for the trips. I did the got the paper. But the thing is, nobody's going to hire you unless you start doing it.
Mhm.
So the smaller gigs are better to start out. Say I've done 10 gigs now, or I you're, the best thing is familiarity with the unit.
Sure.
Um, if you get a guy on a show site who's running an E2, ask him a couple of questions. What are some shortcuts? Ask him if he could practice with it a little bit, because the truth is, not so much with the E2. The Spider was very if you didn't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
But the one of the nice things about the E2 is, and I wouldn't have said this 10 years ago, but YouTube and Barco have come up with some very good tutorials,
Yes, they did.
and they're always good to brush up on and relook at it. Nothing beats being in the school, but I mean, turns out I didn't go to E2 school. I'm not certified, but I've done so much with the E2 and the S4 and the other Barco units that it came to me very quickly. But I still go back every once in a while and I look for shortcuts and new things. You're
Sure.
constantly learning. But tricks to get on it, ask, talk to your guy that you've been doing other things with. Hey, can I come into the office and practice on your E2? Show some initiative.
Yeah,
Show them that you want to be that person.
exactly.
Don't try to be paid for it. They don't want to pay you for that.
Yeah.
Your education is on you. But show some initiative and say, listen, I've had a couple of runs with the E2. I want to get better. Do you mind when you're not using it? I could, put it up and practice on it. I know I could do the GUI and everything, but nothing is better than practical hands-on machine.
Yeah.
And I
I mean,
think that's really a good
at
idea.
least so one of our other guests had brought up
The
Barco
GUI.
site, and that that you can do it online. It's a virtual practice thing. But like you said, having it in your hand, and I'm a hands-on learner myself.
Sure.
Like I could read a book all day long, but until I
Mhm.
get my hands on something, it's just not the same. Um, so we're actually getting close to the end
Yeah.
of our talk here. Is there any new technology that you see coming out or any new trends that you see happening in our industry that people might want to know about or
Well, a
any?
lot more people are using. They're getting away from Playback Pro, going to MIDI.
Mhm.
Playback Pro was a standard for many years. It got a little glitchy depending on the Mac that you were using.
Sure.
MIDI, it's a good standard. It's a good solid piece of software, but like everything else, it takes a little time to learn.
Yeah.
Playback Pro is infinitely easier to run. MIDI, there's a little checks and balances where the audio is going, where the video is going, asking those questions, of course. And then with our in the world of the virtual world, vMix made a huge change after COVID. We got into vMix and using those, and now people are using vMix on live sites, on show sites for various things. So it's constantly churning. There's new stuff coming out all the time. I'm not a be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of Blackmagic cameras,
Hmm.
but as far as their other gear, their switching gear, I think it's wonderful. It's easy to use. Uh, it's fairly intuitive. I'm still a big fan of the Panasonic 410. I really wish they'd come out with a better. I know there's a new HD version of it, uh, but it's out of my price range right now.
Sure.
But yeah, bigger is not necessarily better either.
That's very true.
Um, Truth is, as a video engineer, you need a couple of cameras, which really should be on a separate switch um, that go into your main switch. That way, you can have control. Once the segment is up, you can switch them very quickly, and especially with the switches that we're using. The E2 is not a camera switch.
Yeah.
Uh, it's much better to have it just come in as a program off of the camera switch, and then just do those switching. Looks like video walls are going to be changing a lot in the future. They've already gotten lighter and much more flexible and easier to set up. That's going to change. That's going to make a lot of changes.
They may even turn into, I saw the prototype, so I don't know if this is really going to be in the commercial AV business just yet, but LED curtains as opposed to an
I've
actual.
seen them. They're amazing. Yeah, I did a gig, and I'm going to use the name up at Pepsi.
Mhm.
Their corporate headquarters has two curtain walls when you come in, and you can't tell the difference between them and not the average eye can't tell the difference between them and a really solid wall.
Sure.
I mean, if you got it once they turn everything off, and you can see right through the thing.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
great.
it's amazing. Uh, and they're lightweight, they're easy to use, they're and that's going to make a difference in this in our world because every time you make it lighter, easier to use, more uh, efficient, it starts blowing the doors off everything else.
You got it.
Because weight is everything.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very
Okay.
much, Chris. We appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us, and it was good to get your insight on these topics. Is there anything you want to say here at the end?
If you're looking for a V1, Chris Shulo at chrissciullo1 at gmail.com. That's CHRISSCIULLO 1 at gmail.com. Give me a call. Love to hear what you guys are doing. And thanks for this opportunity to say hello and a very Merry Christmas and a happy holiday to everybody. Happy New Year. Please be safe out there. Safety last.
Yeah, exactly.
That
Thank you,
safety on
everyone,
last.
and we'll see you on the next gig.
I hope so. Yeah, we will see you soon, I think.